Welcome to the first training course for your certification in sexual assault investigations. In this course, we will explore in depth the myths, biases, and misconceptions regarding this crime and how these beliefs affect investigations and overall believability, which impacts victims of this crime and their willingness to actually report. Each section of training builds on the next, and we will tie it all together as we complete this training. We'll explore the neurobiology of our brains when they're affected by trauma so we can more effectively understand why many victims present as they do. In every culture you see, the brain's response to any attack is essentially the same, controlled by the defense circuitry, running on reflexes and habits. This is true during sexual assault, physical assault, and military combat. It's also true in our own jobs in law enforcement, in any type of first responder work. This is why most sexual assault victims find themselves automatically engaging in and stuck on ineffective, passive, and submissive habit behaviors. The neurobiology of stress and trauma intersect with power dynamics and culturally conditioned habits. This also explains why most perpetrators select their victims based on those power differentials, why they can generally depend on victims' ineffective resistance and submission. We're going to talk about all of this. I'll introduce you to the fact that may surprise you. A small percentage of men commit the vast majority of sexual assaults. Right now, it's estimated that only 30% of sexual assault crimes are reported. This course will introduce you to the realities of this crime and why, if we think of it differently based on those realities, that these cases are some of the most important to work and that they're solvable. We just have to adjust our lens. My name is Kim Kelly, and I'm a retired federal agent. I spent 18 years of my career with the Naval Criminal Investigative Service, and no, the TV show is not real. But I retired with their little sister agency, the Coast Guard Investigative Service, at the Training Academy, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, or FLETC, located in Glencoe, Georgia. I was a working agent for 23 years and then taught at the Academy for another 6 years. I am a subject matter expert in sexual assault, stalking, cold case homicide, and interview and interrogation. While with the NCIS Academy and later after retirement with the FLETC, I was a co-course developer for their sexual assault investigations training program. I deployed to Joint Task Force Guantanamo as an interrogator in the very early days and was one of the original female agents assigned to interrogate detainees from cultures extremely different from ours, and we did all this through a male interpreter, no less. Teams of psychologists from various three-letter agencies came to Gitmo to watch us, the female interrogators, as no one was sure the male detainees would even talk to us, but they did. A lot. Alongside my female colleagues, I worked aside several exceptional male investigators, and the ones that had the impact and created an opening for verifiable dialogue were not what I call the tough guy table bangers, but the ones who spoke softly and respectfully and were patient. I learned a long time ago as a female in law enforcement, patience being my word, interacting with victims and suspects alike from a place of respect, regardless of my personal feelings, was highly successful. Here, in summary, is what I practice and what was learned in Gitmo. Regardless of very different beliefs, literally, fundamentally so, these detainees responded positively when treated with respect, period. The FBI's High Value Detainee Interrogation Group, or the HIG, best practices include the use of rapport, active listening skills, empathy, respect, beginning with open-ended questions, memory-enhancing techniques, and the strategic use of evidence. Their conclusion: historically, most interrogation training has been based on what worked for trainers, which may vary dramatically based on training, agency culture, and experience. This practice could result in the propagation of ineffective practices. The HIG has been conducting research, training, and interview and interrogation since its inception, which has allowed it to identify effective practices that are individualized, flexible, rapport-based, and information-seeking, and do not rely on formulaic approaches or techniques. The successful interviewing techniques that are evidence-based all involve the phrase you will hear again and again, trauma-informed. We will explore that in this section of training, although a more in-depth training will be offered later in the certification program. We will begin with focusing on actual case studies of sexual assault investigations done poorly and several done very, very well. In the creation of this training, I have endeavored to build a program that asks a lot of questions, causing reflection, while also providing not only answers but how-tos, so you can both incorporate this information in how you conduct your own initial response and subsequent investigations, but also to give you the tools to train others within your departments, should you so desire. We'll use a variety of training methods to include video and audio recordings like podcasts, interviews, 911 calls, and TED Talks. You will also see and be given access to protocol from the International Association of Chiefs of Police. There will be reading and writing assignments and discussion forums. At the end of the course, you'll be given a resource list that you can use to train and or create or improve upon policy within your respective agencies. Again, this course is designed to build onto the previous learning objective. Your first assignment will be to identify if your agency has a written protocol for responding to sexual assault. As the course progresses, I encourage you to return to the protocol, identifying needs and adding best practices to it, or to help build a protocol. This course will provide such resources for you to accomplish both. I spent 3 years working cold case homicides while sitting with the San Diego Police Department, and many, many more homicides in my career with NCIS. Sexual assault investigations are every bit as interesting, complex, and often more investigatively challenging to investigate than many homicide cases. I was also a member of the San Diego County Stalking Strike Force for 7 years. We met monthly as part of a multidisciplinary team to review and advise on the most complex stalking cases in the county. By the time these cases reached us, their lethality risk factors were sky high. In homicide investigations, we cheered when we had DNA evidence tying our suspect to the scene. In sexual assault investigations, our suspects usually admit to the act, with DNA to prove it, but do not agree on the context, i.e. lack of consent. That is our challenge. As we learn about the reality of serial offenders, know that the cost of one failed response can mean additional victims. We will talk about stalking in depth in this training because this charge should always be considered, and it's both much less difficult to prove than you might realize and may be the element that encourages charges to be filed. Maybe stalking is all we can prove at this time, but we do it for the next time, and there will be a next time. Stalking and sexual violence go hand in hand. Women stalked by abusive partners experience sexual abuse at significantly higher rates compared with women not stalked by abusive partners. If they stalk you, in addition to other sexual abuse, they're more likely to kill you. Same with strangulation, so we'll talk about why we ask our victims about that too. The fundamental training tool we'll begin with is an 8-hour docuseries on Netflix called Unbelievable. This series was inspired by true events and has been viewed over 32 million times. It was nominated for several Emmy Awards, Outstanding Series overall, also for casting, writing, and, you'll meet her soon, Outstanding Supporting Actress Toni Collette for her role. It is a high-quality case examination. Spoiler alert. This series is about the least likely suspect you will ever deal with, a serial stranger attack. But it's because of that this story highlights every single issue we need to focus on, both how we get these cases, historically so very, very wrong, and how we can get it right. We have to begin, however, with examining implicit and explicit biases, meaning our own beliefs and biases, as well as society's beliefs and biases, as well as the victims and the suspects' beliefs and biases regarding cultural myths, personal prejudices, and preconceived notions, many of which are not even conscious. In order to dismantle the most damaging of these, we will learn from those in the research and actual investigative field, from the experts who do this work very well, day in and day out, investigators, first responders, prosecutors, educators, advocates, alongside the victims and the suspects themselves. Welcome. to the Sexual Assault Investigations Training Program. I'm glad you're here.